Gabe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So because you're the expert of yourself, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself, tell us about your training and where you're dancing now.
Yes, so I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I trained in ballet starting when I was about 3 years old, always dancing around. I went to a few different schools in Philadelphia, the Gwendolyn By Dance Academy, Philadelphia, Koresh School of Dance, and then finally the Rock School for Dance Education. And then when I was about 14, I moved to Moscow to finish out my training at the Bolshoi Ballet Academy. There I became the first African-American male to graduate from the school before joining American Ballet Theater when I was 17. I've been with American Ballet Theater for about 10 years.
Yeah, and for everybody just tuning in, Gabe is a soloist with ABT, and I'm a huge fan of you, of your work. During your time at the Bolshoi, was there ever any pressures to maintain a certain body aesthetic while you were there?
For sure. I mean, I think, it started a bit before. I have a very muscular build, and so it's very, very easy for me to build muscle, which people think sounds great, but in the context of ballet, it can be difficult because as much as we need to be, navigating our body images safely, ballet is about the line. So no matter what size you are, you don't want any extra lumpage regardless of your size and weight. So I would grow muscle very, very easily. And right before I moved to Russia, I started cyber schooling for academic school halfway through 8th grade so that I could go to the Rock School full time. And prior to moving to Russia, I wanted to have time to acclimate when I got there. So while we were doing the visa process, I took about a month or so where I was just doing straight school, not doing any ballet except for maybe stretching and just like eating. And I got to the academy, and I always say this in this way. In Russia and definitely at the Bolshoi, or definitely in ballet schools, they don't let political correctness get in the way of progress. And so the first thing that I heard when I walked in the door was, welcome to the academy. You can make it to your duet class. You're going to have to lose at least 10 to 15 pounds before we can put you on stage. And your teacher is Yulia Kuznetsov. And I was like, okay, here we are. All right, this is it. We're going in. Good morning, by the way. Like 10:50 in the morning after I landed, and yeah. So it was kind of a wake-up call. In a way, I felt like there's definitely unhealthiness, all over the world in ballet. But I tried to balance it. I probably did it in a slightly unhealthy, kind of restrictive way at the beginning, which, was not the ideal. But I think after that, I learned how to find a healthy balance between pleasure, food, and keeping my body the way that I needed to.
What I try to teach dancers is we balance these two schools of thought in regards to this intuitive nutrition where we are, fueling our body that we love and foods that satisfy us, but then also as dancers and as athletes having more of a proactive approach, which is essentially what you're talking about, because we are athletes and we need to learn how to better fuel our body to energize us for those classes and those performances.
Exactly. It's definitely about the balance, and it's not, again, it's not about being restrictive, but it's funny because sometimes I have conversations with my mom, and I don't know if I've trained I can't tell the difference now, but if I've trained myself or if I just have started leaning towards healthier foods since I was young, actually, because she fed me healthy foods. But, people go for like chocolate and this and that, which is not bad. Again, like everything in moderation, and I forget who said this and how it was worded, so I'm going to really butcher it, but it was something like, if it makes you feel good, it's good for you, essentially. Obviously not in abundance, but just in like pleasurable quantities. Like mango and popcorn are my vices. So
well, just to kind of play into that also, eat what you love and what satisfies you, but if we overeat anything, or if we eat past fullness with literally anything, whether it's mango or chocolate, you're technically not gonna feel great. So
exactly. a vat of kale, it's probably going to end up not being good for you at one point. You'll probably start like not having that kept in your body.
100%. Now moved back to the US and started with ABT, which is already, like you said, almost a decade ago at this point. There was less like political correctness in Russia, and now you come back to the US. So how was that transition?
It was culture shock. And it's funny because people ask me about going to Russia, but I'd been working with Russian teachers in America, which is not exactly the same, but you know, before a certain time, they were still like slapping your leg and saying things that they shouldn't be saying and all the above. So I kind of was used to that kind of style of delivery, the very blunt, straightforward, not skirting around anything to get the thing that they want. And so then I came back to America, and it was all kind of tiptoeing around subjects and like not really telling you what you need to work on, and not just, I mean, not as much to do with nutrition, but just other things were very much skirted around. And so it took so much longer to find out, to realize what you needed to work on, or what was going wrong, or what was, you know, where you stood in someone's eyes, because it wasn't straightforward.
Eating disorders are very, we think that there's this wrong. We think there's a look to eating disorders. Most often it involves females.
Yeah.
But what about male eating disorders are very underrepresented, especially in the dance world. So talk to me about body stigmas and food and your relationship with food and how that might have been exacerbated as a male dancer.
Yeah, I think for me, because again, as I was kind of listening to my feedback when I got back to America, being skirted around, people were saying, oh, like, you to do a princely roll or to do this or to that, you have to lengthen your line. And I was like, well, my legs are straight, so I think you're saying something else. And that is also the danger of not being able to say something straightforward, because then I started getting a little bit weird with food, more so than I was in Russia, and avoiding like any carbs, and like going on like a juice smoothie cleanse that I didn't really know how to do. So I was potentially damaging my body, and extremely worn out for days and days and weeks, because I wasn't fueling myself, because I thought that I had to, or I didn't know how to approach this kind of nebulous, weird thing that they'd said to me a few times, to try to correct it, because I didn't know what I was trying to correct, and I didn't know how to correct it. So I definitely got very restrictive. I think males in the ballet world tend to, it depends on your body type. There's you know, not a lot of me in the ballet world. So I think I have a very opposite problem to some of the other men in the company, or who were previously in the company, who were kind of, you know, doing too much protein powder and doing all these kind of supplements that, you know, and again, in moderation, are good for you. But, you know, if you overdo it and you're overlifting and you're overdoing all this stuff, you end up kind of having the opposite problem.
Yeah. And do you feel that it is exacerbated being an African-American male dancer?
Definitely. Yes, for sure. And I think it's something that's been a stigma prior to my time, you know, prior to my existence, essentially, that they're bulkier, or they're too muscular, or even this just juxtaposition between like muscularity means not soft and not, you know, approachable,
right,
and whatever, all of these words that were used to juxtapose Black people and what they could do in the ballet world.
Right.
So yeah.
Absolutely. And probably having to come over a larger hurdle when it comes to your relationship with food and your body.
Yeah, because I mean, we are few and far between, even in American Ballet Theater, the America's national company. There's 7 of us, and we're supposed to be representative of American ballet. And
Right.
so it's difficult, because you end up, one, being a monolith, or being treated like you're a monolith, and then having to really navigate making sure that you are always at your top excellence, and that you're representing in a way that works. And so when you're getting mixed feedback, plus the history that you know, it's nerve-wracking, and it's definitely something that pushes people into a place that makes them unhealthy.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it sounds like when you were, trying to figure out how to fuel your body, you did experience like negative consequences of perhaps not choosing the more of a balanced approach. So when was it in your career or in your training as a pre-professional that you kind of started making connections that the foods you were putting on your plate was having a bit of an impact on how you were dancing on stage?
Yeah, I think when I first went to Bolshoi was when I started first feeling it. And then I did find a good balance there because they were very hands-on with all of that, and I ended up finding a place that I could balance pleasure, food, and indulgence, and also being how I needed to be, and fueling my body the correct way. And then it wasn't, and then I got back to America and kind of had this confusing um, mixed messaging that kind of pushed me back into this, probably something in my psyche that was already there from years of learning about where I could maybe fit in the ballet world, blackness, and all the other things. Kind of propelled me back into that for a little bit, and I think it lasted about a year, where I was very unhealthy and really couldn't perform the way that I wanted to.
It sounds like during this time, what would have been really helpful was having solid resources to educate you about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's something that's really important for, I mean, not only, through your training years, for sure, in school, for sure, but then the transition into companies is kind of ruthless. And definitely, a lot of us join a major ballet company and you're a professional when you're 16 or 17. And so you have absolutely no guidance. And not to say that, prior generations had to go through it, but it doesn't mean it has to be repeated. I think there needs to be a lot of there has to be therapists on board. There has to be guidance counselors. There should be nutritionists as well that can healthily walk you through it, not skirt around it, really tell you what you need as an individual and help you flourish as opposed to watch you sink.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to just having a proactive approach for dancers, because at the end of the day, you're an athlete, and you need to have a proactive approach to how you're feeling your body and
So
your mind.
if only people saw us as athletes.
That's true. But I see you as an athlete, and I'm trying to change, at least hoping the community that I have on here is trying to change that, where you guys need to fuel as an athlete.
Trying. Me too.
So now, fast forward to now, how are you able to maintain a more positive relationship with your body and even with your plate?
I found this balance between, do I need to, or do I really want to? And there's a really fine line, because of course there's times when you're over a bag of popcorn and just like going like this mindlessly. And
Right.
I found that I know, or maybe my body knows, that I don't really want that. So it's not anymore a conscious thought where I'm like, I'm gonna stay away from the snack
Right.
cabinet. It's just kind of like I walk in my house, I have some water. If I feel like having some popcorn, I'll have some popcorn. If I don't feel like it, I won't. And I think it's, especially for a dancer and people who've gone through ballet schools and weird Jedi mind tricks, it's a hard place to come to, because we're all so kind of messed up by the way that we're trained and talked to. However, I will stand by saying that as much as there's unhealthiness in Russia too, everyone should know there's unhealthiness everywhere. So I do say that in Russia, I was very, very happy, because my learning style that I lean towards is just tell me straightforward. If you can help me, amazing. If not, at least I know exactly what I need to work on, or exactly how I need to, what I need to find to approach this thing that you're telling me.
Totally. And just for all the dancers listening, Gabe, it sounds like you have really a good handle on fueling your body intuitively, in the sense of you are having a more mindful approach to your eating and realizing, will snacking up mindlessly on popcorn, like if I want it, sure, but if I'm dealing with some other type of stressful emotion right now, maybe there's something else that I could turn to.
Exactly. It's like, is this a mental thing? And
Right.
I think because I've had problems with it in the past, I've been able to find a place where I can navigate that, and I am overly aware of not slipping back into some weird pattern, and trying to be healthy, but also letting myself have pleasure too.
Sure. Well, I'd love if you could give us maybe one or two pieces of advice, specifically actually to male dancers who might be in the audience and might be listening in the future, on how they can work to feel more confident and to find their identity in the dance world. It's a loaded,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, I know. I'm like, all right. Well, I would say, the obvious is to always keep working. I would say as much as you can, ask as many questions as you can. Don't be annoying, but go to your teacher if you really feel like you're not working on something, and be honest with yourself. You have to be very, very honest with yourself to make it in ballet.
Mhm.
We're looking in the mirror all day, but it's easy to get deterred by what Susie Q or Frankie Free are doing, and what roles they're getting, and what's happening all around us. But you really, really have to be singular focused on yourself, and look, we know what it looks like. We know what it's supposed to look like. So you have to be honest with yourself and look at what you need to work on, because the earlier you make that realization, the faster that you can progress, or the more you can progress in general. But then finding your identity, I think being a ballet dancer is this huge kind of two-sided thing, where we are trying to replicate this perfection, but then we're also, we get out on stage, we get into a company, whatever. You have to bring your artistic side to it as well, and don't forget to live a little bit of life, which is, I know, as someone who's gone through rigorous training, a lot to ask
Right.
when you are wanting this so badly. But, take time for yourself, say hi to your family, have a meal with friends, do something so that you can find yourself, read a book, you know, just like really delve into the whys and the hows for yourself, and how you really want to be presenting your art form, because you are the instrument, we are the instruments for ballet to be presented on, and so you have this unique opportunity as the art and the artist to speak ballet the way that you speak ballet. I hope that doesn't sound too vague and convoluted, but like,
No, that was fabulous. I think if we just uh, focus it, I think what you're saying is have a multifaceted approach. Like dancers need to focus a lot on dance, but we also need to be other people. We need to be a friend and a daughter or a son, or
yes,
have, because those experiences are what you'll bring to the stage in your artistry.
for sure. I definitely need a crazy translator. Because I'm just like, no, wind and sunshine and palm trees. I've been in the Cayman Islands for way too long.
Fine.
It's just about
Well, Gabe, the final question I asked, you kind of answered it already, but very broad question, how would you define a healthy dancer?
I would say someone who can balance their focus with their pleasure and with their. It's a multifaceted approach.
There you go. Done. Now
Yeah,
you can
but
take
really, someone who can balance pleasure, focus, which again is very, very difficult, because one can very much easily take over the other, and I've seen it happen where you just lose yourself, and friends, we get stressed a lot, especially when it comes to like learning a new role or the big season coming up or whatever. But really finding time. I'm gonna sound organic for crunchy granola for one moment, but really finding time to breathe, because in the midst of death seasons, one ballet after the other, it's really easy to get in this mechanism, in this machine. And I think something that I hope a lot of people have learned over this pandemic period is that we do need to take a step back. Something I've been teaching, or telling all the students that I've been teaching in various places, is that yes, we're in this like small square space with like one plot of Marley, and we're not doing like grand jetés across the floor. But now you have a second to sit down, and this sounds really crazy, but look at one foot and say, wiggle your left toe, to the point where you find this articulation that you would have never been able to get to when you're just banging out class every single day and doing the variation of variation of variation. Now we can really hone in on these details that people are yelling at you while you're trying to also learn choreography. So yeah.
Yeah, this also actually feeds into nutrition also, because one thing I've always been educating the dancers I work with throughout the pandemic is now you have the time to actually play around with intuitive nutrition, and like, as organic and crazy as this might sound, really like diving into your body and seeing like what might satisfy you. Maybe a full-blown kale salad is not actually the thing that's going to satisfy you in this moment. So
just a grilled chicken, and then maybe, you know.
Right. Well, Gabe, thank you so much for tuning in with me today. I really appreciate it. You've given us wonderful insight.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Well, be in touch. I'll talk to you soon.
I shall talk to you soon as well.